Good morning, good afternoon, good evening, and good night, wherever you are around the world. Welcome to Wizards of the Coast's exclusive coverage of the final match of the Pro Tour season. It is Ivan Floch of the Slovak Republic. There he is in his first Pro Tour top 8 and his first final, of course, against the man from Canada rewriting the record books, Jackson Cunningham. There he is in his first Pro Tour. He is one match away from claiming it all. Best 3 out of 5. I'm sitting alongside Mr. Brian David Marshall and Hall of Famer Louis Scott Vargas. BDM, best 3 out of 5. What are we going to see in this historic final?
We're going to see a lot of nothing from Ivan Floch here. His deck has no creatures. He has no win conditions. He just has Quickens, Wrath of Gods, and Elixir of Immortality.
Luis, is it going to be Magic Immortality for Ivan Floch, or can Jackson Cunningham get up in his grill with green-white aggro?
I think with Floch on the play and this matchup being what it is, I have to give it to Floch here. Though, given this start, this is the best deck in the format to play against if you're starting on 2 mana Confluence. Cunningham's going to take, 11 damage from his lands in the first 5 turns, and it's not going to matter.
Not care at all. All right, so we have opened up with Soldier of the Pantheon. And Cunningham, you see his hand there, double fleece main line. That is going to get syncopated, by the way, from Ivan Floch. So that's the first set of damage averted. Floch is all about reaction, about card draw. You see a divination in his hand. He already has Supreme Verdict aplenty in hand. And the absolute killer card, though not the kill card, is Sphinx's Revelation. And if he can get that off for any sizable number, 5, 6 plus, well, it's going to be an uphill battle for Jackson Cunningham.
Luis, is it fair to say that Ivan Floch just wants to play a land every turn?
Yeah, and that's not, we don't mean every turn for the first 6 turns or the first 10 turns. We actually mean for the first 20 turns. And land, speaking of which, is actually what Ivan Floch drew last turn. He kept a two land hand, and he was able to peel a Temple of Enlightenment on his last turn, which, you heard a faint cheer from his friends at that result.
Yes, and that divination has found him 2 more land, and again, that is just the ammunition he needs.
Right, and then next turn you may very well just see him play a Jace, -2 it.
He could definitely do that. He's also got double Supreme Verdict, so the first one kills the Soldier and the Voice, the second one mops up the Voice token plus whatever Jackson played. Also, Jackson's stuck on 2 land himself, which, a lot better for the green-white deck than the blue-white deck, but still a problem here.
Jackson's had quite a lot of mana issues through the top 8 so far, to be fair, on his route to the final.
He plays a land-light deck.
Well, he's actually playing 24, which is a pretty solid amount, but he's playing 8 forests, 8 plains, and then 8 lands that produce both, 4 Temple Garden, 4 Mana Confluence, but that's actually not an outstanding mana base. For a 2-color deck, without, something like a Brushland or a Temple, because he doesn't want any come to play tap lands, it is a little rougher.
So Cunningham has attacked with the Voice of Resurgence and the more beats as we head on with Jace coming down.
I think Floch's in pretty good shape to just plus the Jace here.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. I'll go to plus.
I will go to plus.
Yes, sir.
It hurts my heart to see Floch, in the finals of a Pro Tour with mismatched Hallowed Fountains. Though Martin User was saying that Floch always plays mismatched basics, but Martin gave him the all matching basics this time.
He
for
said
the first time.
even worse than that. It would be like some of them would be white bordered, some of them would be black bordered. None of them would have the same artwork.
Smartened him up for his finals appearance.
It looks like Cunningham's considering a Selesnya Charm token here at the end of the turn.
Yeah, it's not particularly effective against a Jace plus. Jace is going to make his whole team attack for 3 total, even if he does cast it. But he's not going to do enough pressure, with just the 2 creatures in play. What Cunningham wants to do is set it up so that when Floch, has to cast Supreme Verdict, Cunningham can respond with end of turn, casting an Advent and attacking for 5. But being stuck on 2 lands is making that a little more difficult.
So we're going to see the mode on the charm that makes the 2/2 knight.
Right, we've now seen all the modes in this top 8, I believe.
Mm-hmm.
Voice was a pretty good draw. I mean, for drawing a spell when you're stuck on 2 lands, Voice is decent. It makes Supreme Verdict a little more punishing.
The Vigilant token.
Yeah. Okay, 3 triggers.
Yeah.
3 triggers.
11.
Yeah.
And Jackson falls to 11 to make that second Voice of Resurgence token.
Floch at a higher life total than Jackson.
Did Jackson remember to gain life off his soldier there?
It's only opponents.
Opponents.
It's only opponents, yes.
So it could come up with Azorius Charm or Supreme Verdict. We'll see. And here's where Quicken really does shine. You can Quicken and give your opponent a million voice tokens, but then if you're casting Supreme Verdict, it doesn't matter.
Does not matter, yeah.
And so that means those voice tokens don't get to attack. So Floch is free to either plus or minus Jace, play land, pass the turn, and then Quicken Supreme Verdict when Jackson goes to attack. So I like the plussing Jace. You don't need to hit a land drop this turn. You've already got the Quicken Verdict ready to go. And that's part of why this matchup is so tough. Is voice generally lets you crack back right after a Supreme Verdict, but Quicken lets you avoid that step entirely. Jackson may not be able to cast spells in 2 or 3 turns if he doesn't draw any more lands, and these mana confluences bleed him dry. We could see Floch win the game off like 2 Mutavault attacks.
Oh, wow. Well, Cunningham.
It's not clear that he would see that line.
He wouldn't be used to it, but I'm sure he would take it into consideration when he sees that Jackson is at like 6 or something.
Okay, everything attacking Jace.
Everything attacking Jace, says Jackson.
Triggers.
6.
Yeah,
triggers.
triggers. Yeah. I'll play Quicken. Yeah, go ahead. with tokens.
Yeah, says Jackson. That was...
Go ahead and get tokens, sure.
You're up.
A chuckle.
The Soldier of the
Floch.
Pantheon, I mean, this trigger could be relevant this game, as you normally would not be.
Okay. So trigger, die. Okay. Gain 1 from this.
Yes, well, there we go. Gain a 1 from the Pantheon.
Die, but get 2.
Yeah.
Get post combat.
I know Jackson has to be, suspecting another
10.
Supreme Verdict, but he doesn't really have the luxury of playing around it right now.
Down comes Fleece Main Line.
Right now he has, 3 3/3s.
He's very soon going to have 0 3/3s. Floch even gets to minus Jason, pretend like he's looking for a Supreme Verdict, potentially leading to a really advantageous split.
Quicken, Azorius Charm, and Sphinx's Revelation, one of the signature cards in the blue-white deck.
Is Sphinx's Revelation or no?
Yeah, I mean, you already have a Sphinx's Revelation, but Revelation does draw more cards. I think that's how Floch determines which pile he's going to take. Which pile draws more cards. So if it's like a Divination versus, a Quicken, it's like, well, you take the Divination. Even if it's Reb versus Quicken Azorius Charm, I have 7 lands out, so Reb is going to be better.
What if they went double Divination, Sphinx's Revelation?
Ooh, you have to count your lands. Then
Yeah.
It's really
Yeah.
close.
Hit 2. 10.
Take 2, I'll go down to 10.
So now it gets to Supreme Verdict and have Dissolve up, just to make sure there's just no chance of Jackson getting back into this game.
Yeah.
Go.
How many cards?
4.
4 cards for Floch.
I'm at 8.
Here we down to 8 now.
You're at 8. Dissolve.
Just no.
You just damage him by countering his spells at this point and forcing him to keep playing stuff.
Out. Floch draws into Azorius Charm.
Another reason this matchup is good is that Azorius Charm fights Advent of the Worm very effectively.
Oh, absolutely.
Sphinx's
Just
Revelation.
straight up banishing in that sense.
Revelation for 4.
Floch in danger of missing a land drop, and that cannot stand.
he will not. I mean, you see him do that all the time.
There's a land. Hooray. Loxodon Smiter.
It is uncounterable, though. In this case, Floch cannot have countered it regardless. So I like Floch going like minus Jace, play another Jace, minus Jace, play a Guildgate. Azorius Charm your Smiter. I guess if he hits an untapped land off Jace, he can even have Dissolve up with that whole sequence of plays.
Oh. Verdict. on its own against two very pretty planes.
Yeah, no real reason to do anything but just take the verdict there. I mean, Floch's entering the 99%, win zone here, and he has to make sure not to give Jackson any edges. Of course, the actual victory is potentially many turns away. Floch can also just ignore the smiter for a turn. It can't kill Jason, it can't kill him, so this way he gets to leave Dissolve up and have double Zori's Charm. Supreme Verdict and Sphinx Revelations. I'm just like naming good blue and white cards. This all happened to be in Ivan Floch's hand.
So ignoring Jace, Loxton Smiter coming straight at you, and even says, here's a Zori's Charm. Let's put that on
Zori's Charm
top.
does 2 damage to Cunningham here.
This is going to soon strand Cunningham with literally uncastable cards off Mana Confluence.
Here's Experiment 1. And a Sunblade Elf.
Which does not evolve the Experiment 1 this time because there's no planes in play. Floch just needs a Mutavault. He could actually seal this up.
Ticks up here.
Yeah, at this point, I think he could actually just Jason out an Advent in like 2 turns, and it's just lethal in 1 hit. Jace also nullifies any attacks by those 1/1s. They don't really need to go anywhere. Jackson still can't cast anything, and if he casts the Smiter, which I think he has to, he goes down to 3 life and is like very close to just being unable to cast spells. This is probably the most damage that Evan's done, in the entire tournament by this time, this turn.
Right. Who's the beatdown?
Yeah.
His mana.
Experiment 1 will deal a total of 1 damage to Jace, Architect of Thought. And now at the end of turn, Sphinx's Revelation for 7.
I don't know, that might be a little hasty. Are you sure you want to, burn that before you draw 10, maybe 12 cards with it?
21-3, all the cards, all the answers. Cunningham has none of the ammunition.
Floch's the kind of guy who would play a Reliquary Tower if they gave him one.
Yeah.
All right, Verdict.
Would be great right now.
Board is clear. The only question is, there we go, whether he was going to sweep up his lands as well.
Still have all these
Supreme Verdict's
elixirs.
very powerful.
And indeed he does. So even Floch from the Slovak Republic takes a pretty comprehensive game 1, not least because Jackson Cunningham stayed on 2 land. Had actually a lot of spells that cost 1 and 2 in that game. But he was hitting himself repeatedly with Mana Confluence damage. So it's the best 3 out of 5 here in the final, and that means sideboarding potentially even more critical than usual. So here's Even Floch's sideboard up on your screens at home. 4 Nyx Fleece Ram, 2 Last Breath, an Elspeth, Sun's Champion, Jace Memory Adept, Deicide, 2 Dispel, 2 Gainsay, and 2 Archangel of Thune. And Brian Kibler, I noticed on Twitter, was saying that after sideboarding, that Archangel of Thune could be a thing.
Oh yeah, this is definitely one of the matchups where it can get out of control very quickly. Its drawback is that it doesn't actually fight some of the creatures in Cunningham's deck, but it gets out of control with the Nyx Fleece Ram and the fact that it kind of blanks some of the smaller creatures. I wouldn't be surprised if Yvonne wanted to board those in. I mean, it seems good to me, having not played the matchup, but it is. I mean, it's certainly a powerful card. Elspeth is great, and the Nyx Fleece Rams are very good. All these cards conflict a little bit with all the sweepers, but the sweepers are particularly bad against Ajani's Presence and against voice tokens and against Advent of the Worm. So, on balance, I think that Evan's happier making the sweepers worse because they were already a little problematic.
So you see him bringing in 6 creatures here?
Yeah.
And an Elspeth? So
Potentially also Last Breath and Dispels. Dispels is an interesting one, but Dispel counters Advent of the Worm. It counters Ajani's Presence, and it counters Celestia Charm. Celestial Charm may well not be in Jackson's deck, but Jackson can't change his deck all that much. I mean, he can put in Skylashers, he can put in a Johnny's Presence. He doesn't have a ton else to really go for. And Dispel counters some of the more important cards.
The interesting thing there, though, is that the way you stack that up, you're going, well, maybe the Dispel, maybe the Archangel, you've got the 4 Nyx Fleece, Ram, the last. We're kind of up at around 10 sideboard cards.
Yeah.
What is Floch going to start taking out?
We're looking at a lot of cards, but Floch also has actually more cards than you'd expect that aren't good in his main deck.
Right.
You've got Planar Cleansing that costs 6 and doesn't really kill anything except creatures, so it's just a worse Supreme Verdict that costs more and still gets beaten by a Johnny's Presence and doesn't kill voice tokens, like it leaves tokens behind. You also have Dissolves and Syncopates on the draw against a deck that has Locks on Smiter, can't be countered, Voices, which make Counterspell bad, Advents and Celestia Charms, which play at odd times. So, and just a very low curve in general. So Ivan's actually got a lot of flexibility here.
Okay, so that's on one side of the table. Even Floch, with perhaps as many as 10 to come in and out. We'll get Tim Willoughby down on the floor to give us a sense of what he actually ends up doing. But then on the other side of the table, we have Jackson Cunningham, one of the cleanest sideboards in the top 8. Only 5 cards to choose from. The full 4 available. You're only allowed to put 4 in your main deck and your sideboard between the 2 of them. And Jackson's gone with the full suite of 4, Setessan Tactics, Unflinching Courage, and Skylasher in the sideboard, Singleton of Ajani's Steadfast, and then 2 Ajani's Presence. So what do we think's going on here?
The Johnny's Presents are certainly coming in because they counter Supreme Verdict and potentially Planar Cleansing. Skylasher also could be an upgrade. It's actually a little bit worse than Celestia Charm, I suppose, so maybe there's not really room for that. I mean, it can't be countered, but your 2 drops aren't really getting countered all that often, and protection from blue doesn't really matter here, so I cannot imagine Setessan Tactics, Unflinching Courage, or Johnny Steadfast coming in.
So in terms of a plan for Jackson Cunningham, has anything really shifted post-game 1? Is he just still fundamentally about, I'd like an Experiment 1, I'd like a Voice of Resurgence, I'd like a Loxodon Smiter, and then end of your turn 4, I'd like an uncountered Advent of the Worm, something like that?
Yeah, his overall game plan certainly doesn't change. The only difference is he's a little better against Supreme Verdict now. He's got a Johnny's Presence. He can, keep 1 or 2 creatures after a Verdict, and that's something Yvonne's definitely got to be aware of and is going to play around, but overall, I think the matchup started out in Yvonne's favor and actually gets significantly worse post-board for Cunningham.
Right, yeah, sure. So advantage to Even Floch right now. And if he does make it, he will be the first Slovak champion of a Pro Tour. He's already guaranteed a slot at the World Magic Cup as the captain of the Slovak Republic. And we will see him, therefore, at the end of the year in Nice in France. It's going to be an incredible World's Week BDM.
Yeah, absolutely. Great players. We're going to see 2 amazing tournaments. The World Magic Cup and the World Championship. William Jensen, who made the top 8 of this event, locked up his berth there.
Now,
And
how about that for a row of Magic Pro points? And look, everyone else is just going, hi. And meanwhile,
is that
you've
Sam
got,
Black again?
yeah, Stanislav Sivka, Frank Karsten, Martin User, Matej Zatlka, and Dennis Rashid. And can I say a very special congratulations to Martin User. He was right up against the wall. Yes, great job. Martin User, everybody in the hall. He went platinum this weekend. He needed such a high finish, and he pulled it out. It would not be the same without you, Martin, in the Platinum Club. You don't need to sit up straight just because we're talking about you.
Yeah, that's why they call him Lucky Martin. That's what he's known as.
Who was that? That was weird.
A basic planeswalker.
Very good. Yes, Murderers row out the front there. But in all seriousness, many congratulations to Martin User. We really thought we were going to lose him from the Platinum Club, but he pulled it out top 16 and gets to that magic land of 45 pro points. Great job.
His airline loyalty program would have suffered a lot if he didn't make platinum in this club.
Right. So who will be the Pro Tour Magic 2015 champion? Your chance to vote now. You can either vote for Even Floch and have a good chance of being right, or you can root for the underdog because Jackson Cunningham is on a story ride to get here. First Pro Tour, first day 2, first top 8, first final. Can he come back against what is looking like a really, really tough mountain to climb in the form of the blue-white control deck of Even Floch.
And according to Frank Karsten, Even's now a 78% favorite to win the match. He did the numbers.
Frank Karsten, the god of fake stats.
Well, what his because he was challenged by Osip, actually challenged him on this, and his reasoning was, if Even's got a 60% post-board win percentage, then he's got a 78% aggregate to win the match. Going in up again. So it's possible that it's bigger than 60% too. Frank should actually have run a number of simulations.
Thing is, he's probably going to say, "Who's got the PhD in math?" Yeah.
Who does have the PhD in math?
Frank Karsten.
Okay, just checking.
I did tell him once he got his PhD, once successfully defended his dissertation, that really what was the point of all it if you didn't force people to call you doctor? But he's not the type, unfortunately. I know I would be.
I can tell you that Riley Knight, our host on the European coverage scene, he does indeed call Frank Dr. Frank Karsten, much to almost everyone's amusement. So there's Jackson Cunningham again. Can he pull it back?
Can we get Frank to rerun the numbers, given that Jackson's now mulliganing?
I was just wondering, do we creep into 80% territory here?
Even Floch looking extremely fresh because he's not playing an easy deck. And we see a Nyx Fleece Ram right at the front there of Even's hand. You see a Last Breath as well.
The old Nyx Fleece Ram Supreme Verdict combo.
Yeah, I mean, while it may seem like an anti-combo, it's still actually quite good. It still gains you enough life and stops enough damage that you can just save the Verdict till much later.
Right, and Jackson has to play his creatures out wider to get around the ramp.
Yeah, it's no Icy Manipulator Wrath of God combo. That is an actual combo. This is just synergy. This is like a medium combo.
Oh boy.
Ooh, 5. 5 for Jackson Cunningham. And again, you've got to be impressed that he's just still here, given the mana issues he's had today, because he has had a lot of games that have been pretty clunky and mulligans here and there. And
Yeah, he'd much rather have it here than 3 rounds to go and on Saturday.
Absolutely. Yep.
There are worse places to get mana screwed than the finals of the Pro Tour.
Yeah.
Not that losing in the finals feels good. I mean, it actually feels horrific, but if you get mana screwed on the way there, you just don't get there, and that's even worse.
Yeah. Although there's quite a bit more at stake for Jackson, since this is his first Pro Tour and he's breaking through in the last Pro Tour of the year. The difference between 20 points, and not not getting to silver.
Well, yes, he gets 24 points by being in the final.
Yes.
So he's right there. Silver is guaranteed. That invites him to the next PT. So we will see him in Honolulu.
And he would have, actually the next 2 PTs. Cause he's,
Right.
Because he's invited to
Top
Honolulu
25.
from top 25, and then you just use a silver invite for the next one.
So that brings us to Washington in February. But if he can win this game, BDM, then everything shifts.
Right. If he wins the match, then he's platinum.
The finals of the Pro Tour are bigger than they ever have been before, because the winner now gets platinum for an entire year, plus the next year. I mean, if you win like the first Pro Tour of the year, for example, you also get a seat at the World Championship. And those two things combined mean that you're playing for, the monetary prize, then almost as much in equity outside the monetary prize, which is insane.
Right.
Yeah. And now if even Floch wins here, so is Yamamoto really pulling for Floch?
Totally.
Right? Because if Floch wins, he is occupying one of the at-large berths, and that would pass down. But I think it sounds like we're ready to go here.
We are, and we're ready with a 5-card hand, which again is actually pretty presentable for Jackson Cunningham, because he's going to do at least some version of curving. As we see on turn 1, it's Experiment 1. Turn 1 for Floch will presumably be relatively unexciting. As he pauses to consider which land he wants to stick into play.
I mean, I don't know if you've played a Scry Tunnel before, but those are pretty exciting.
I really have, yes.
And even though Jackson does have one of his ideal starts, creature on turns 1 and 2, just one Nyx Fleece Ram holds those 2 creatures off. It means that they're dealing 1 point of damage total each turn, which is not enough to stop Floch from doing what he wants to do.
Yeah, Soldier of the Pantheon comes in, Soldier of the Pantheon rather triggers the extra counter on Experiment 1, which comes in, and that will drop Floch away from his 20 life. And Cunningham already down to just 2 cards because of his mulligan to 5, and he has a board presence. Ajani Caller of the Pride and Advent of the Worm. Turn 2.
Wow, last breath. Take out the experiment one.
And that was even a good draw. It offers an alternative to Nyx Fleece Ram, and the reason you want to do that is Experiment 1 does live through Supreme Verdict, so nipping that in the bud is definitely in Floch's favor.
Land number 3, well worth paying the 2 life because it's essentially free for Cunningham, and he will send out Ajani Caller of the Pride.
And Johnny is actually one of the better tools that Cunningham has at his disposal, because Floch's deck is particularly weak to Planeswalkers, having no Detention Sphere. It's
Right.
part of the reason he feared playing against the Planeswalker decks so much that he could have been playing in the finals.
Yep,
Not that I think Floch is in too much trouble here, but it is definitely... This game's going to be harder to win because of Ajani than almost any other card that Cunningham could have played turn 3.
There you see the full hand for even Floch a moment ago with full grip. There it is again. We're going to see the Nyx Fleece Ram come out. 0-5, up you gain 1 life. And another Temple of Enlightenment will let Scry send that card to the bottom of the deck.
And this Ajani makes the Ram less effective than it would otherwise be. It gets to block Soldier this turn, but next turn Soldier is going to be a 5-4 because of Ajani, and that's going to make it so Floch's just not able to block anymore with the Ram without losing it.
So where does Ajani go from here?
Is he considering jumping it?
You could. I think I like just plussing it, because then Ajani's plus is not an ultimate you're going to use very often, but dealing 6 right now with Floch at 15 and gaining 1 a turn is a lot less enticing than gaining 2 a turn, or than dealing 5 a turn once it gets past the Ram. You lose this 1 turn of attacks, but you gain multiple turns of attacks later.
I mean, the ultimate is sitting there eventually designed to do crazy things if you make where your life total is high.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know that I would have the stomach to pull that ultimate off against even Floch's
Against
deck.
Quicken Wrath.
So Cunningham is now like bluffing a Celestia Charm, which I think both players full know that can't be cast on Soldier of the Pantheon. So Ajani's Presence is an actual card, though. So, but Ajani's Presence is probably not something he would use, given that the Ajani is right there, and will push the Soldier past the Ram next turn. But you might as well make Floch think about it a little bit. The last breath in Floch's hand is getting, kind of destroyed by this Ajani, and he just got a Supreme Verdict in hand, which is not excellent right now. So things are not looking as bad for Cunningham as they could, especially given the mold of 5.
Especially, I was going to say, this is a 5-card hand.
This Ajani has completely turned the tables, since without Ajani, Cunningham would be doing nothing here, but with Ajani, he's actually in pretty good shape. I like not playing Advent as well. There's no real reason to overcommit when the Ram is going to get eaten by the Soldier soon enough here.
Pretty much throughout the tournament, we've seen even Floch having the answers. Right now, though, Jackson Cunningham is actually putting up a pretty good impression of saying, you need to have something. I'm going to try and do what I can here to make your life tough. Floch looking to see what he can do about that Planeswalker from the Magic 2014 core set, Ajani Caller of the Pride.
You thinking about quickening into a counterspell here?
Just cycling Quicken, but there's no real reason to. I think you're fine. I mean, Floch is not at a point where he'll die to Ajani double strike flying, and next turn he can just last breath the voice. Though Ajani might end up pumping the voice out of last breath range, which would involve giving up an attack against the Nyx Fleece Ram, but that might be worth it. Looks like Floch actually boarded out almost all his counterspells. Anyway, he did board out 4 Dissolve, 2 Syncopate, as well as 2 Revelation and Elixir because he's boarded in win conditions, and 2 Planar Cleansings for the Dispels, the Elspeth, the Last Breath, the Rams, and the Archangels.
Right. Jackson's sideboard looks a lot more simple. He just took out 3 Banishing Light, brought in the 2 of Johnny's Presence, and jammed a Skylasher in there.
Yeah, I mean, the Banishing Light basically don't do much. Though, given that he's going to see these Nyx Fleece Ram and potentially Archangels, I wouldn't be surprised if 1 or 2 Banishing Light might make their way back in. Skylasher doesn't seem like it's particularly crucial to his plan. I think Floch might leave the Syncopates in on the play, but on the draw, they're really not what you want, especially when one of the 3 drops is a Loxodon Smiter.
Okay. Puts the Soldier to 5.
I like that. You have to get by the Nyx Place Ram, and even though your voice now can make it last breath, I don't think that giving up potentially 5 damage is worth it.
And you know you can't get Azorius Charmed.
Yeah, Soldier has protection from Azorius Charm, and the voice sitting there makes Azorius Charm particularly bad.
Yeah.
And then Floch also has, he can't block profitably with Ram, and then that's enough to make him Wrath, which would presumably be good for Cunningham here, since he's got the voice in play. An end of turn last breath, untap Wrath would be decent. I think I wouldn't be surprised if Floch ended up doing that. And if he's planning on doing that, blocking with Nyx Fleece Ram is probably a pretty good idea.
Put it at 11.
Yeah.
Floch down to 11.
Upkeep.
And back up very swiftly to 12, thanks to the Ram.
We can't really afford to play the Temple if he's planning on casting Quicken into Supreme Verdict here. But he might just be trying to hold on for a few more turns. He's got to worry about a Johnny Double Strike. Again, Soldier can't get pumped by Celestia Charm, so he's not going to get killed necessarily out of nowhere, but a Johnny's Presence to make the Soldier a 6, a Johnny Double Strike, and then you've got, and flying, and that's actually lethal right there. And, the fact that it gets around Azorius Charm means that there's no real downside to going for it.
Yep. Main phase is the last breath on Voice of Resurgence. And then plays the Scryland.
And a big advantage of this play is also that you get to use the Scryland, which is critical because you've got really nothing else going on right now.
So at this point, we have to assume he'll block.
I think at this point, Floch is looking like he wants to block and then potentially Wrath the next turn. You could take another hit here, but then you have to leave up mana or get comboed out by a Johnny.
But Johnny's Presence here is a kill.
A Johnny's Presence is lethal right now if Cunningham draws it and goes for it.
Wow.
Second of Johnny is actually a kill also. I actually think that it's perfectly acceptable to try to go for it here. You just use a Johnny to make the Soldier a 4, 4 counter, so make it a 6. Play a Johnny. There's no counter you can have that can counter it right now. Azorius Charm doesn't work.
I think this is the math Jackson's starting to do.
Yeah, actually, given that they know the main decks and sideboards, I think it is actually, just about a guaranteed kill. The only thing that could stop it is Last Breath on Floch's own Nyx Fleece Ram.
Oh.
Which is a thing, but he's already used 2 Last Breaths.
Down we go.
Yeah.
And you want to minus
Pantheon.
the first of Johnny's, so the second one has a higher loyalty.
Get rid of the other. Here comes the second. That 4 is going to become
Wait.
5. Up we go.
Wait, did he miss the kill here?
No, he
No,
minus the
no.
first of
Oh,
Johnny's.
fine,
I'm
yeah.
sorry, he minus the first of Johnny.
He
Yes.
attacks, and that's
I got
game.
confused.
No.
He did exactly
Oh my
what he
God,
needed
that's
to.
awesome.
Don't make him scared like that. No, Jackson Cunningham takes down the second game. And
Mulligan to 5 on the play.
if he does get there, Luis, that is exactly the kind of moment that you can point to and say any number of players wouldn't have seen the kill there, especially under the pressure and the lights, in a match where you're kind of thinking, I'm up against it. But now, best of 5 has become best of 3. Great effort, Jackson Cunningham. Now, is there a sense, if you're even, obviously he is a very calm individual anyway, but is there a sense of having felt robbed in that game in some way? Like, did you feel broadly ahead throughout most of that game? And then, how did that happen?
I think he even does have to feel that way. He had to keep it in mind, though. He knew that all those cards were in Cunningham's deck, and he played in a way that kind of left him open to that. I'm not saying that he even necessarily made a mistake. He just had to be aware that this was a possibility.
Right, because it was not just the Johnny there that he could have drawn.
It was the 2
Johnny's
presences and
presences.
the 2 other Johnnies.
Yeah.
So, dying to a total of 4 cards is not outrageous, but it is something that can happen, and it certainly did.
Very tough to answer this, and I'll quite understand if you say, no, I'd need to watch the tape back. But was there a place where he could have just left himself less open to how he actually died?
The problem that Even had was that he had only a Supreme Verdict and a Quicken. He did not have a ton of cards. He actually ended up being a little flooded that game. Like, he didn't have, any divinations to kind of smooth out his draws. So if he blocked earlier with the Nyx Fleece Ram, then I think he could end up running out of cards, which is more likely to cause him to lose the game than necessarily dying to this combo kill. So
Right.
overall, I think he took a slightly safer route, but it just ended up not working out.
Right, there was a turn where we thought he might block with Nyx Fleece Ram, untap, and Supreme Verdict.
Right, and I think not doing so is fine. It's just he left himself open
Right.
to this the sequence of 4 cards that
Right.
Cunningham ended up drawing that turn.
Right. You're saying he knew the risks, and he's like, it's a 5-game set, and I'll, move on and get to the next 3.
Yeah, for every game that Cunningham doesn't draw that card and you maybe wrathed a turn or two too early, you end up just drawing 2 more land in a row and just dying to a smiter. So
Yesterday at BDM, you and I had the chance to talk with Paul Rietzel, and indeed everyone else got a chance to speak with Paul Rietzel during our Ask Us Anything.
Sure.
I was chatting with him again this morning, and he was talking about stamina at Pro Tours and just how tough it is to wade your way through 16 rounds of Swiss during the 2 days, and then again come back in the top 8. BDM, you've won the Pro Tour. No, and one of the things I'm most impressed by about Jackson Cunningham is that he absolutely looks as if he's as fresh as for round 1.
Yeah, no, he looks just as nervous as he did in round 1
Yeah.
as he does in the finals.
No, but seriously, he looks just absolutely as he came in.
Yes, yeah, I
he doesn't
agree.
look like he's suffering. He doesn't look like he's going... Okay, because we've seen multiple times on the Pro Tour stage, people check out. There is a point, and no one quite knows where it is for each person, but there is a point where you reach your limit and you can no longer read the cards, understand the cards, play the cards. You can't do any of it, and you're just a burbling mass sitting at a table waiting to be told it's time to go home.
Right.
And we've all done it, and sometimes it happens in round 2 of a PTQ when we're just starting out and we're trying to remember, right, so instance I can do that at the end of your turn, right?
You've talked about that with Raf Levy, where his energy is low in the morning.
Yes. Yeah, back end of a tournament, an utter machine, but finds it hard to start out. So very impressed with Jackson Cunningham here, keeping not just calm, but just the energy level.
I think just a little bit of an edge. I joke about the nervousness, but when I talked to him yesterday, he said he was nervous throughout the weekend. Playing my first Pro Tour, made my first day 2, playing for top 8. Same. And I think he lets that nervousness feed him. I think he keeps him sharp.
Yeah, it's the kind of, I must play correctly. Got to play correctly. I'm on camera. Let's do it right. Yeah.
And you can see, Jackson being quite deliberate when he plays, and I think if that's what he needs to do to make sure he doesn't, make mistakes or, reduce the chance of making mistakes at the very least, there's nothing wrong with doing that.
I wouldn't take off Lucky's sweater, though.
No, that's clearly a mistake. I do like the Raiders hat, though.
Of course you do.
Boo.
Is it the San Antonio Raiders?
Well, we'll see about that.
Oh, you're
Okay.
both awful. Right, so 7 cards apiece. There's even Floch's hand. He, of course, is on the play this time around, and he is looking at just 2 land. He's got double Last Breath, Jace, Architect of Thought, double Supreme Verdict, a Temple, which helps because it's a scry land, of course, and an island. And it looks to me like he is really seriously contemplating this because he's not actually going to get very far unless he does see more land.
I think he
I think
already
he
said
already
he was
kept.
capped.
Oh,
Yeah.
okay.
Well, the Scryland 2-land hand on the play, I think, is generally fine, especially since Last Breaths can deal with the early plays that Cunningham may have. Cunningham is looking at a much less good hand with a Johnny, Advent of the Worm, and a bunch of lands, which is not really the aggressive start you want.
I think he's going to go back.
Johnny's good in this matchup, but not having a play on turns 1 or 2 just is not good against a deck full of divinations. It just lets those cards be awesome, whereas divination is normally not great against a beatdown deck.
He's on the draw. Does that, I mean, obviously it helps, but you would say not enough. He's going to keep.
Okay.
He's going to keep. So let's go down to game 3 of a possible 5 to determine the last Pro Tour champion of this season. Here we go. It's Temple of Enlightenment for Floch. He is going to keep on top.
Going to just guess it's a land.
Yeah.
Wild stab in the dark.
Well, and there's a 1-drop for Cunningham, so it looks like he got there. I mean, that is the card he wanted to draw.
And it's the same card that was very powerful for him last game, Soldier of the Pantheon. But 2 Last Breaths in Ivan Floch's hand, and I don't think he's going to wait around very long to get rid of that soldier.
No, I suspect Floch is going to want to last breath it before taking damage off it. He doesn't need to fire it off. I mean, he can just fire it off now. Might as well play around to Johnny's Presence. So Johnny's Presence might eventually get you anyway, but if you're gonna do it when Jackson attacks, there's no reason not to just do it now. You're not gaining any additional advantage. He's not casting Rancor on it or anything.
Yep, it's gone. Jackson Cunningham goes up to 24, largely irrelevant life points.
That could be pretty good with a Rancor.
Yeah, Rancor's a nice one. Now, even though Jackson drew the 1-drop, Floch's hand was good against a 1-drop, and in general, just not having a creature on turn 2 and 3 is just going to be pretty problematic for Jackson here. He has the turn 4 Advent, but this gives Floch the opportunity to minus Jace twice under no resistance.
So I think we're going to see it. Yeah, Johnny's going to come down and he's just going to tick it up.
Yeah, Johnny does get to tick up with nothing in play, though.
Yeah. Up 2 is the key word here.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. So plenty of land in hand for Cunningham. Here's Planeswalker on the other side of the table. Jace, Architect of Thought, down 2. Reveal the top 3. Wow. Quicken, Verdict, Revelation.
How do you even split that? You don't give him Quicken Supreme Verdict, do you?
You don't want to, especially this early. What the problem is, Cunningham does not know that Floch really wants the Rev and the Quicken more than the Supreme Verdict. He's got 2 Supreme Verdicts in hand already. So I think Floch may have taken Verdict by itself, or rather Revelation by itself. Maybe not, because Quicken is really good right now too, but that was a great split for... I mean, Cunningham didn't make a wrong split. He doesn't have all the information, but
Right.
Floch was very happy with that.
Now have a Loxodon Smiter in hand for Cunningham.
Of course, drawing the Smiter on turn 4 means that now Cunningham has the option of playing Advent or Smiter, but given that you know that your opponent has a Quicken in hand, you've got to, and instantly took the Rev Quicken over to Verdict, you've got to suspect a Quicken Verdict might be coming out. So Floch wants to plus Jace before minusing it just to keep it in play, but if he's going to miss a land drop, I think he's just going to minus Jace. You just cannot miss land drops with this deck if you have any options.
Absolutely. How many lands does Even play?
He plays millions as far as I know. I mean, something like 27 at the very least. Take a look at the deck lists here, but...
Meanwhile, Loxodon Smiter has a counter on it. Ajani, Caller of the Pride, is up to 6. Jace, Architect of Thought, is down at 2 for that man, even Floch. There you see his board position.
Even just cashing in the Jace right now.
Yeah.
It's just going to find another one. Oh, boy.
Quicken, Divination, Last Breath.
Yeah, and Even's actually playing 26 land because of all the Divinations and Quickens and
Right.
Azorius Charms.
So you're just going to take Divination here?
Last Breath's basically not a card at this point, given you already have one. I mean, it's just not a very valuable one. So it's whether you think that quickening out the second Verdict is necessary, or the Planar Cleansing, perhaps, versus a Divination. Quicken is, half a Divination already, and it gives you additional utility. Floch has to also decide what he's casting this turn, because if you just take the 2-card pile, then discard, it's like you took a 1-card pile. So
Sure.
he needs to figure out...
Looks like he has a land.
He does have the land, so he needs to figure out whether he wants to just cast Supreme Verdict this turn and play a tapped land, play an untapped land and pass with Quicken Verdict up, cast like a Divination this turn, though that seems a little bit riskier.
He has never met a Divination he didn't love.
Oh yeah, there's no reason not to just
I was
cast
going
it.
to say, who are you talking to there?
Yeah.
Cunningham going to think about casting a Johnny's Presence, which he doesn't have, and then he thinks about it, but if he had it, he would cast it here. I would be shocked if he did not. So
Right.
I think Floch is just going to put him on not having it.
Which will be great for Jackson if he just draws it next turn.
It's true. I mean, representing it, then immediately drawing it after you would have cast it, does actually give you, trick your opponent.
Down to just one Planeswalker in play right now. 6 counters on Ajani.
Now, Johnny Ultimate, again, technically does something. I mean, it puts, 22 tutus into play right now, which sounds like a lot, but
It does sound like a lot, Elise. You are correct.
at the end of the day, a Supreme Verdict still does the same as it would normally.
And he just has no way to disrupt Floch from having it. Right? There's just nothing he can do. Unless somehow he finds Floch with just no cards in hand.
Yeah, I mean, a Johnny's Presence saves a guy, but a Johnny's Presence with Strive, I mean, if you want to save 22 cats here, you're talking about a lot more lands than both players have in their deck.
Okay. Here's another Loxodon Smiter.
Up we go again.
And Cunningham really, really resisting the temptation to cast Advent of the Worm until he gets to untap with creatures in play and hopefully force an end-of-turn Advent, through. But Floch's just not letting him get into that position. And Azorius Charm was a great draw here. Azorius Charm makes it mean that so Floch can basically just ignore the Smiter for a turn. I like casting Divination. You really hope to draw a land. But even if you don't, you can still cast Azorius Charm.
Divination. Draw 2. Pure, simple, awesome.
And there's no reason to take a giant hit from that elephant if you can just Azorius Charm, especially since if you cast Divination there, you're discarding. That's just bad.
It's the best possible divination for him, though. A land and a divination.
Oh, yeah. I've demonstrated a loop. I would like just infinite lands and infinite divinations.
It's going to keep putting counters on to Johnny.
Smash.
Unsuccessfully attacking,
Blocks.
potentially, I think.
Then I'll use Charm.
Yep.
Cards. 6.
And here's where unfamiliar with Floch's sideboarding plan really plays into his advantage, since Cunningham is casting the Advent in response to play around to dissolve. He wants to do it while Floch steps out.
Right.
Floch doesn't have any dissolves left in his deck, so now he just knows there's an Advent coming. Nyx Sleuth's Ram has not impressed me so far. It got blanked by a Johnny pretty quickly. It doesn't match up well against Advent. I think it's a card you probably want, but does not seem insane here.
Would you rather leave some counters in, or?
On the play, maybe Syncopate is better. I think
Yeah.
Syncopate actually has an opportunity to be decent. Planar Cleansing is pretty appealing here now that there's an Advent in play.
Good.
Yeah, the Johnny's Presence. I still think that Ivan is unconvinced here. Ivan did probably feel pretty bad about this turn. He did not play a land this turn, which is,
The worst thing that's happened to him in this top 8.
Cunningham's about to have more land than Ivan in play.
Yeah.
That is just brutal.
That's not how they drew it up.
Back up a Johnny Caller of the Pride.
21.
Actually, Cunningham's probably not going to play his last land just to keep a card in hand. But he could have more land in play. The point remains.
He can show the tape too, even after the match.
So there's Divination into drawing land and playing Supreme Verdict. Even at 22, there's no way he can get comboed out. So I think that I like just casting Divination here. You really, really need to hit land drops.
Oh, there you go. The second best draw you can hit off divination.
You have Rev in hand, so I don't mind just casting a Supreme Verdict and then setting up a Rev next turn with 8 lands in play. You could play a Nyx Sleuth's Ram, or you could, just take a hit off the Smiter. Taking a hit off the Smiter is actually not bad either if you want to quicken Verdict next turn and then, give Cunningham another turn to play a creature. The problem is a Johnny's Presence starts getting dangerous at that point. So I could see even being, risking a little too much by just waiting on the Supreme Verdict.
It looks like he's just going to do it
Yeah,
now.
if you take like 6 this turn, and then next turn you get your Supreme Verdict of Johnny's Presence and a Johnny double strikes, like the plus Celestia Charm or something, like you're taking a game that you're almost impossible to lose if you just do this now and putting it in a realm where some combination of cards could actually beat you.
Yeah, and let's not forget that's why we're tied at 1-1 in part,
Right.
because exactly you were from almost nowhere just smashed into Kingdom Come, and here we are 1-1.
Yeah, and the reason that happened last game is that Even had way less options. Here he's got a ton of options, so he's firmly ahead, so he doesn't need to take risks. Last game he didn't have a whole lot going on, so he did take, what I assume is a calculated risk, and ended up, on the wrong side of it.
Yeah.
Though I think it was a fine sequence of plays.
I think that's a tough concept for Magic players to get sometimes when they're starting out. The idea that you could make the correct play and just lose.
Yeah, I mean, that's tough for people in all walks of life to realize that because something ends up poorly does not mean it was a mistake to do.
Right.
And the vice versa. Because a play wins you the game doesn't make it the right play.
Right.
So I think, results-based thinking is very dangerous. Alternately, you have games like this. Games where Floch is ahead, he should take less risks. Games where he's not ahead, he should take more risks. And you should not use the fact that he lost last game to say that he was doing something wrong.
You can actually get into a fairly dangerous pendulum also doing that, where you sort of start reacting to the last thing that happened, and you don't actually put up any kind of consistent pattern of play with which you can actually measure stuff.
Right.
Okay, here comes the Sphinx's revelation.
I don't really feel Floch is a man of dangerous pendulums, to be fair.
He takes risks. I mean, sometimes he risks, missing a land drop by casting, not casting divination, but...
I actually haven't seen him
Oh,
do
right, he's
that
never
yet.
done that.
Oh, that's better. 11 cards in hand.
Yeah.
10 when I scry.
I love the Scryland after the Sphinx's revelation.
Yeah. Just an additional, you're getting a little bit more value.
I will draw 6.5 cards.
Meanwhile, Cunningham's incredibly a Johnny flooded there.
A Johnny, another Johnny, and yet another Johnny after
Yeah,
that.
he's definitely feeling a Johnny's presence, which is kind of unfortunate because it would have been good earlier, but not very good right now.
I'll go to discard. Sorry,
I will
I'll
go to discard.
Okay, yeah.
And that's approximately that.
I'm pretty sure that's his. I'm convinced it's his favorite step.
Is the discard step.
Yeah.
The mid-game discard step.
Yeah.
The turn 3 discard step is a lot less fun.
Oh, for sure.
I think we might see a Johnny Ultimate here. Cunningham has so many Johnnies, and they're doing so little right now that you might as well go for it. Like one of Cunningham's best plays is to just ultimate a Johnny and hope against all hope that Floch just doesn't have a Wrath of any kind.
Right.
Of course he does, and it's immediately going to become obvious, but...
The real question for me is whether or not Floch will let the judges lay out all 21 tokens.
I kind of hope he does. I mean, it'll be faster if he doesn't, which I guess is nice, but I kind of hope he does.
Think of the screenshot.
Cards.
7.
How many of them are a Wrath?
As it turns out, only one, but that's really all you need. Yep.
Yeah, sure.
Yep, here we go.
Here we go.
It's actually correct, too, because if you're...
21, okay.
Like do 5.
No. What are these dice doing?
It's okay.
How many do we have?
Come on.
Can we not get another
Come
Johnny
on.
token here? This is kind of unrealistic. I feel like we're misrepresenting the board state.
It's not us, Louise. Let's be clear.
I use the collective we.
We're campaigning for clarity.
How many is that? Go.
Pass the turn.
21,
Less than 21, I think.
27.
Well, it's going to be a lot less than 21 in a second here.
Exactly 10.
There's exactly 10. Well, that's half of the ones that are going to die in a minute.
A lot. It's okay.
Ivan does not seem particularly concerned, and there's a reason for that.
No. Bye.
Yeah.
Oh no, my Nyx Fleece Ram died.
They used all 21 of those cats' lives.
Wait. What's 921s?
He should
189?
have 6 left. Technically.
9.
I'd like a 2-2, please.
Floch is not concerned. He's not racing to dispel that. He might. I think there's a pretty good chance he last press it in response to a Johnny giving it +1/+1 here. But even if he just ends up using Azorius Charm, that's fine too.
Another one. Sure. Resolves.
Sure, resolves. Even Floch knows he's got this one.
In response to ability.
Sure.
Last breath.
Yeah.
Make it go away.
25.
I feel like there's a little bit of a stifled chuckle when Floch is in the mid game with this deck.
Yeah.
Like.
So I don't think Floch should cycle the second Azorius Charm here. I think cycling Quicken is much safer. He's got Dispel, and I think trading a Dispel for a Advent is actually fine. Floch is going to need another Wrath in a few turns off that Ajani, and currently doesn't have a Rev or a Wrath or anything. But I guess he's got an Elspeth, so I guess he's not going to need anything.
Win condition engaged.
Elspeth is awesome because the reason, that's actually a very fast win condition, and given that Floch's hand isn't incredible, it's good, but it's not incredible. I think that's exactly what he wants to see. Because Dispels for Advents, a Last Breath, and an Azorius Charm is enough to stall the game long enough for Elspeth to kill a Johnny and then kill Jackson.
Advent.
Yep.
And Floch's
No.
I read that.
pretty rich on Dispels here, so I think he's going to be fine countering that.
Cards in hand. 3.
I have to ask you, Rich. Which spell?
Dispel.
There you go.
Cute.
You answered instantly there.
Of course, well. I'm not going to answer sorcery, am I?
So it's just looking for.
Once Elspeth goes ultimate, the Nyx Fleece Ram can actually start attacking for 2 in the air.
I would like to see that.
But not so much on a Magic table, but you mean in real life.
No, I kind of want to see it happen on a Magic table.
Okay.
I would actually very much enjoy the winning stroke of the Pro Tour being a Nyx Fleece Ram attacking.
That would be pretty epic.
Yeah, a lot has gone wrong when that happens. Cunningham taps 2 forests, realizes that doesn't actually represent any card in his deck, except potentially a Skylasher. So I guess he could have drawn Skylasher. Skylasher would kill a token right now. Would not do a whole lot else. And Floch could cycle Azorius Charm at any point, but I like a lot better that he doesn't.
Boon Satyr.
Yeah.
Boons are actually going for the Ajani kill. Unfortunately, I predict that Cunningham's next draw is going to be a Boon Satyr, which means that Elspeth is basically a lock to go ultimate at this point.
Away it goes to the top. Elspeth, you see, just grinding her way towards the -7, which would mean all those soldiers
Pretty brutal.
would be +2/+2 and flying.
Well, let's not forget the Nyx Fleece Ram.
Indeed.
And here we're not even going to have to wait for Jackson Cunningham to concede this game,
Yeah, no,
out of boredom. Like, he's actually going to die to lethal damage. Like, the soldiers present a clock next turn.
And it's great because you can just ultimate Elspeth here without any fear of a Bile Blight or a Quickened
yeah,
Supreme Verdict or.
There are no repercussions.
Even Floch from the Slovak Republic.
He's just not even bothering to play the Jace because he actually just knows he's won the game and doesn't need to see extra cards. He doesn't actually. It's actually a strategic reason too. He doesn't want to show that he's got Archangel Thune in his deck, since Cunningham hasn't seen it so far and may not have Banishing Lights to deal with it.
What is that? Can I read what the ultimate does?
Ultimate. Emblem.
Really, I hope he attacks with this Nyx Lunar. And that's actually, the biggest thing we have to figure out this last part of this game. There we go.
Oh,
Yes!
there it is.
How many cards?
Sheep to the air. 8. Yeah, no.
These bluffs are just getting outrageous.
He was representing Quickened Genesis Wave there.
All right. Game to even Floch. He leads by 2-1.
I am very excited to go home and build that deck now.
Well, we've seen him win with card advantage pure and simple. We've seen divinations, we've seen Sphinx's Revelations, and even Floch just takes a moment away from the spotlight. But I can tell you that in that game, a certain lady came to not quite the rescue, but Elspeth Sun's champion, just a phenomenal card in every way. Eric Deschamps, who, by the way, is the artist in residence, along with Cynthia Shepherd this weekend, creating the unique Garrick artwork that's been gradually materializing over the weekend. But there you see her. She's mythic. She's from Theros, of course, the powerful planeswalker, capable of quickly building what we saw there, an insurmountable army of flying sheep.
Luis, rank the 3 Elspeths in terms of like tournament impact.
Elspeth Knight Errant, I think, is number 1. I think she still sees modern play. She's very, very good. She's 2 white, and then puts ++ on soldiers into play at plus. Also pluses to give them any creature +3/+3 in flying, and then makes all your permanents indestructible. Second would be this one, Elspeth Sun's champion. As we just saw, she's just one of the better kill conditions in Standard, and also just does a very good job of defending you. And I think Elspeth Tyrell is the last, but certainly still quite good. I mean, we played her in the Block Pro Tour in Scars of Mirrodin, and I made top 8 with her in my sideboard, and she was good.
I've often first picked her in a cube draft.
She also makes 3/1/1 soldiers, and also gains you a life for each creature you control. So overall, I think all the Elspeths are insanely good, and I guess they don't even go by casting cost. Sadly, it goes the 4 cost, then the 6 cost, then the 5 cost.
Yeah, it's interesting though that you have Sun's champion second, because did Knight Errant make as big an impact in Standard as Sun's champion has? I don't think it did. I mean, I agree with you that
I think it's a higher power level card, but it may have seen play in a slightly lower power level format, or sorry, a higher level format.
Right.
So because given that, I think that you end up, maybe not seeing it just because of what other cards are around. I mean, a 6-mana card is tough to see a lot of play, but this one's seeing a lot of play. Yeah,
and it was a big part of the last Pro Tour, and now we're seeing it be a major force here in Ivan Floch's sideboard.
Well, we don't know how much more we're ever going to be seeing of Elspeth, because certainly for those who follow all the ins and outs of Flavorness, Elspeth, it's fair to say, is in a bit of bother, to put it mildly.
Isn't this just like comic books?
She's not very well.
Isn't this just like comics? We get like Doc Ock's Sun's champion for 2 blocks, and then the original Elspeth comes back.
Oh, I see.
Yeah, all sorts of continuity lapses.
Well, that would be quite the revelation. But talking of quite the revelation, how about this one? Sphinx's Revelation. Oh, it's so shiny and so lovely. Someone posted on Twitter earlier today. They said something like, I imagine some kind of design meeting where someone said, yeah, you know what, X for just having all those cards, it's insufficient. It must gain life too. And everyone going, yeah. And they were sort of saying that as if in some way they don't think that actually happened, or they don't think it should have done. But this is one of the most fabulous cards ever. Everyone knows that, right, aggro players?
How different is Standard if R&D, if Forces and R&D had won the debate to make this card a sorcery instead of an instant?
It's very, very, very different. And
whoa.
And while this is certainly a dangerous card to print, I mean, this is very risky. I mean, look at how good this card is. When you're drawing 5 cards, all you want is 5 life to give you time to play those cards. This, I think, it actually worked out pretty well. Without Sphinx's Revelation, we just wouldn't see control decks. And, well, whether that's good or bad can be debated, but I land on the side of it being good that there'd be more decks, and it being good that some of them are control decks. So, while I don't expect to see a card like Sphinx's Revelation in the Khans of Tarkir, I don't think we always want to have this around. I think having it around has been good, even though it could have worked out very differently.
Yeah, and also, look, for all we tease, because I'm known that I've never wanted to attack with a creature. I'd always much rather draw cards and counter creatures. But the truth is, I'll be quite happy when Sphinx's Revelation rotates out, because then there's freshness again in the game. And Khans of Tarkir, as you say, shaping up lots of excitement about what that's going to bring. And you'll still see blue and white. You'll see the Jeskai. I think that's who's coming with blue.
Is that the red,
white,
white, blue?
Yeah. Yeah, I believe that's correct. I think I've got that right.
Which is the color that Sphinx's Revelation gets paired with in Modern all the time.
Otherwise known as the Numat.
So we will stick
Numat
with
the erstwhile.
Yes.
Not the erstwhile. How about Jace, Architect of Thought? Let's see if we can take a little look at him. Lots of text on that one, and 24 copies. We've already talked a little bit about Pro Tour Dragon's Maze. 24 copies in the top 8 of that event. Jace, not in so much trouble as Elspeth right now in terms of the flavour of the game, but he certainly gets the job done. Jace, in terms of characters, Luis, would have to be within the framework of the cards that they got printed on. Surely Jace is number one.
Yeah, I would imagine that's true. I mean, Jace has there's so many Jaces, and they're all awesome.
Yeah. Any argument?
I mean, he's
BDM?
talking about so many Jaces. I assume he's talking about cosplayers.
I've seen a lot more Elspeths and or Lilianas than Jaces, I think. Though Gavin very doesn't mean Jace.
It's true. It's true. He
Not
does.
like a mean Jace, because
No,
Gavin's
mean Jace,
very
yeah.
not mean, but he does an accurate Jace.
Mini factor fiction, of course, for defending against attackers. The mini factor fiction in the middle ability, -2. But such a great card for control for that first ability, because just wiping off -1, -0 until end of turn, they've got 3 attackers. It's like 3 lives. Suddenly they're having to attack Jace. Oh, synergy's
Well,
glorious.
what was the event, Luis? I watched the match you were playing, and it was you and your opponent were playing some deck. It was going to come down to decking, and when someone would activate Jace, it would be like a 3-0 pile.
I remember this happening. I don't actually remember which tournament it was in, but it actually happens in the S Premier a lot in Standard, or used to depending on which kill condition you used. And that's, once the lands don't matter, you can just put them in the pile with the good cards, and then it forces the opponent to either pick the cards and risk getting decked, or just get nothing.
How often do you see players are willing to take nothing there?
Very rarely, even when it's correct, because you don't activate Jace to get nothing out of it.
It's true. All right, so that's Jace, Architect of Thought. We've looked at that. We've looked at Sphinx's Revelation. We've looked at Elspeth Sun's Champion. We've looked at 3 of the key cards in even Floch's deck, and he is now just 1 game away from being a Pro Tour champion. And that means that Kentaro Yamamoto, BDM, is about to want to shake Even Floch by the hand very firmly. Talk to us about that.
Yeah, he is the president of the Even Floch fan club. All the at-large bids have sort of sorted out, and there's 7 players with at-large bids. So if someone is qualified for the World Championship in multiple ways, for example, they won a Pro Tour and they were the leading European player, well then that would create another at-large bid, which is what would happen if Even Floch wins this next game, or one of the next 2 games.
That's right, because he would be one of the top 2 Europeans, and he would also be the Pro Tour Magic 2015 champion. It would be as the champion of this event that he would take the seat at the World Championship, and that would create that 8th spot for Kentaro Yamamoto, as you say. And it would be nice to see him there, because he's one of the unsung heroes of Japan. Although I've got to say, there's a new star in the making, certainly on our radar, and maybe this is partly our lack of quite understanding of what's going on in that part of the world right now. But I've got to say, Yuki Ichikawa was pretty new to me, certainly when he made the top 8 last time around in Atlanta. But boy, oh boy, he's carved out a reputation this weekend.
Yeah, back-to-back Pro Tour top 8s here. He is, a tremendously popular streamer on the Nico Nico channel in Japan. On an order of magnitude that we don't even see here. Just gets tremendous numbers, plays Magic all the time on Magic Online on the Nico Nico stream. And, obviously he's not going to top 8 every other Pro Tour.
No. Are you sure?
I'm not certain, actually.
Because that has not been proven yet. We're going to have to give it a few more Pro Tours.
Okay. But, to have 2 Pro Tour top 8s back-to-back in such a short amount of career, this is someone to keep an eye on.
And he actually seems like, he's definitely smart enough that he's not going to take this and think like, man, if I miss 2 Pro Tours in a row, then I'm having a bad streak. Like, I would hope that he has a realistic view of things, which, based on how well he plays, I'm sure he understands.
And also on all those games on Magic Online, because when you do it enough, you get beaten in every way that it's possible to get beaten, however good you are.
Definitely.
But as we close in on Game 4, right now, Ajani, Forest, Loxodon Smiter, Plains, Loxodon Smiter, and Soldier of the Pantheon. 6 cards. On the other side, Even Floch has last breath there. He has Supreme Verdict. Does he have 7 cards that can help him claim the title?
I think his hand is basically perfect. I mean, he would trade an island for a plains right now, but other than that, last breath into divination into Supreme Verdict is exactly where you want to be.
Soldier of the Pantheon opens up here in Game 4. Jackson Cunningham will attack for 2. This time he has a curve out with Fleece mainline on 2.
And this is the start Cunningham wants too. So both players, having the start they want, it'd be interesting to see who wins. I mean, with Cunningham on the play, gives him certainly an edge here. But Supreme Verdict against no Ajani's presence is also a pretty big deal.
Yeah, we've not really seen Ajani's presence have much of a presence
Capital P
in this.
presence.
Yes, absolutely. Yeah.
Johnny was all over the place in the last game,
Indeed.
where perhaps a couple of creatures would have been more welcome.
This actual spell on the right of your screen is not a card that has really made itself felt here in the final. And it kind of needs to, because Jackson Cunningham cannot lose another game. We have 1 or 2 games remaining in this 2013-2014 Magic the Gathering Pro Tour season. And someone is about to become a Pro Tour champion.
Jackson gets to 4 lands before Floch gets to his 4th land, obviously. They both get to 4 lands the same turn. What happens if Cunningham has a Johnny's presence at that point?
Depending on Floch's life total, he could be in danger of just dying immediately. Right now, it looks like that's not necessarily going to happen because I think that this soldier's going to end up getting last breath. Cunningham really needs to draw a 3rd land here, though. If he doesn't draw a 3rd land and he's not able to play a Smiter or an Ajani, then he's going to have a hard time clocking Floch for the amount he needs to. What he really needs to do is have Floch cast a Mind Rot on him, in which case he can discard these 2 Smiters and get them right into play. So Floch thought it last a long time before declined to cast this last breath, and I think that the reason is that he's aware that Ajani's presence can save Soldier of the Pantheon, but he would rather have that happen now than have it counter Supreme Verdict later, save a Fleece main line. So I do think he's going to want to kill the Soldier and not take 5 here, though.
But, Selesnya Charm cannot save the Soldier.
I think if that was something that could get Selesnya charmed, like a Sunblight Elf or an Experiment one, it would be very different. But since it isn't, I think he's willing to trade for Ajani's presence. I think that was a conscious decision he made.
And no land for Cunningham.
That's not good. It's been a theme. So's that divination on turn 3. I know a lot of people are hunting for a game 5. I suggest a new strategy even. Let the rookie win. Don't think he's going to, though. There's land number 3. That's good news for Cunningham.
He needed it that turn, and Floch cast the divination instead of playing the temple, which means he's not guaranteed to have double white next turn.
Here's Ajani, caller of the pride. Counter on the Fleece main line. In. Can Jackson pull this one out? Against a full grip, of course, for even Floch. When has it ever not been? At least that's how it seems. There's the Fleece main line.
Yeah, my planes there.
Cunningham's actually in pretty good shape here. Because he played Ajani, he's not getting wrecked by Supreme Verdict, which Floch did actually draw the white for. I think Floch's going to want to cast it regardless, but Ajani in play means that now Cunningham gets to play Smiter plus it. Floch doesn't actually have an answer to that. He has an Archangel of Thune, which will eventually outrace it, but with Floch at 11, this actually puts him in danger of dying.
Can Cunningham force a game 5? Fantastic if we would go to the wire. Planeswalker and Smiter. Smiter's big enough as it is, but it's getting bigger. And that's what Floch has to work with.
And we see a Banishing Light back in Cunningham's hand. He boarded back in Banishing Light, aware of Archangel. He drew it and is going to be able to kill the Archangel with it.
Wow.
We could very easily see another game here.
There's Archangel of Thune, the first time we've seen that today out of even Floch's sideboard. But Cunningham looks like he has the answers. Floch at 11.
Floch's not dead here, because even a double striking Smiter can put him to 1, but he is definitely in trouble.
And he looks like he knows that he's potentially in trouble here.
Clearly, the problem for Cunningham is starting on 7-card hands.
Yeah.
Didn't you take
Did I forget something?
so two from this once, right? To 8 that you have from
Cunningham's trying to make sure he's not a 10 here.
Maybe I missed 3 damage from Lion.
Well, you wouldn't want to get that wrong, would you?
There was this one on
Maybe I missed 3 damage from Lion. I'm not sure.
Yes.
I have,
very
I have
likely.
from
Yeah, it's-
2, then 1 lion, and then
Yes,
Yeah,
sure. Okay.
And he deal 4 damage for sure. Yeah. This question. Yeah.
So mine maybe lower.
Right, but where they get to is Floch at 11.
Okay.
Looked like Floch had himself at a higher life total and had just missed one of the hits.
how many cards?
5.
So what's the play here? Do you Banishing Light and attack, or do you want to just attack first?
I like Banishing Light clock for 10, I think. I mean, you don't want to get hit by the Angel. You don't want the Angel to hit your Johnny back. You actually don't want the Angel to chump. I think I'd rather just present lethal. Wrath forces a 1-for-1. The only problem with that is Planar Cleansing is such a blowout.
That's what I was imagining. That's where the paranoia in my brain immediately went.
Yeah, I could see minusing a Johnny and hitting with Smiter, and then Floch can chump with Angel and take 10, go to 1, and then Archangel attacks a Johnny to death, but then Floch goes up to 4 and still dies to the Smiter potentially. That could be better. You could just put yourself in a position to lose to Planar Cleansing, though. That without knowing what's in Floch's hand, of course. I think you want to get the Angel off the board. I think that Angel being on the board is just too bad for you. So I think that just gets out of control too quickly. But so I think you can't. When you're playing against this blue-white deck, you really cannot play around everything. Like the blue-white deck can try to play around everything white-green has. Blue-white has the tools at its disposal. I think green-white just has to settle for the fact that blue-white is going to have sequences of cards that always beat it, like Plains Planar Cleansing or Azorius Charm for your Smiter next turn. I think just clocking Floch down to 1 and forcing him to have it ends up being pretty good. I mean, there are a lot of reasonable plays here, so I don't think that I'm not 100% confident my play is right. I'm just saying I would rather put him on Planar Cleansing being an out instead of other things being outs. I certainly don't want that Angel to pass the turn here.
So let's see what Cunningham
Looks
decides.
looks like he's plussing a Johnny if he's reaching for another die.
Mm-hmm. Attack.
But Johnny consistently has been a very good threat in this matchup.
Yeah.
Against
Much
the
better than I
non-detention
would
sphere
have
version of
expected.
blue-white. Floch's hand is not great. I mean, it's 2 last breaths that have no targets, a Dispel, which isn't soon to be relevant here, and a Temple of Enlightenment. So what he really needs to do is Jace into like an Azorius Charm after drawing a land.
No blocks.
No blocks. So Floch
5, right?
Yeah.
goes down to 5.
Go.
And Cunningham adds another Loxodon Smiter to the board.
So Floch's really just looking for Supreme Verdict right now.
He's drawn a land. Are we closer still to a game 5?
We are actually. I mean,
Yeah.
at this point,
This
Floch really has to like Jace into Azorius Charm.
Yes, it's like a victory when I'm aligned with you here. That's so good.
And even if he does, actually, I mean, from his perspective, he could be okay because he could hit with the Angel and Azorius Charm to... No, he can't even hit with Angel. He has to just like leave Angel back and Azorius Charm. But then what he doesn't know is that Cunningham's going to banish like the Angel and attack for lethal.
Does he even have the untapped land to play the Jace? I mean, to play the Azorius Charm?
No, he drew a Hallowed Fountain, so he
Okay.
gets to go down to 3 to do that.
Yeah.
That's just a divination and 2 land.
But
That's not Azorius Charm.
Floch might actually... I guess he can't really afford to bluff Azorius Charm. So he's actually dead here. He just does not know it.
Go.
It's going to be, I think, a little surprised by this Banishing Light.
Boom. Go away, he says, sure, in a very casual fashion. Floch at 5.
Now it's Floch's turn to represent.
It's an efficient way of counting up to 8.
In we go, it's 2-2.
Wow.
Jackson Cunningham giving us what the fans at home want. It goes to 5 games, and in his first Pro Tour, he is going to play every single game possible on Sunday. It's game 5 for everything. Kentaro Yamamoto needs even Floch to win to get into the World Championship. Jackson Cunningham needs to win this one game, not only to win the Pro Tour, but to go platinum and guarantee a year of professional Magic to Honolulu, to Washington, to Brussels, to Vancouver. Over and around the world we go on the turn of the next few cards right here. Or will it be even Floch of the Slovak Republic for the first time from that country? It could be the second Canadian Pro Tour winner of the season. BDM, what a single game of Magic this Pro Tour has boiled down to.
This is what you are looking forward to when you tune into the Pro Tour stream. You want to see 2 completely opposite decks playing against each other and playing out the maximum amount of Magic and going back and forth and really showing why Magic is such an amazing game. Where that both of these decks are capable of getting this far. One is a deck about creatures and one is a deck about 0 creatures.
Well, let's look at one of the creatures that has helped get Jackson Cunningham all the way to game 5. He's big. He's the Elephant Soldier. He is the Loxodon Smiter. Yes, efficient. That really doesn't do it justice. It's huge for 3 mana. Good against discard and counters. And was originally created to stand up to Liliana of the Veil. Right now...
Seems reasonable.
Yeah, well, right now, though, he's trying to stand up against Jace, Architect of Thought, and lots of counter spells. Although, Loxodon Smiter cannot be countered.
What was your reaction when you saw this card? You have a long history with elephants.
I played a lot of Loxodon Hierarchs in the past. I even called it a Loxodon Hierarch earlier today. But I actually have not played a ton with Smiter. I've kind of moved into smaller creatures or no creatures.
I would like to see, a set that's based in wherever Loxodon is from. Just, lots of crazy elephant soldiers swinging hammers. I don't know. Is that just
a preeminent captain can put a Loxodon Smiter into play. I haven't seen that happen yet, but it sounds pretty vicious.
It certainly does. Now we saw.
I'm dying to put a Lavinia into play.
Yeah, we built that deck actually. It did not work out as well as we would have liked, but it was pretty cool.
Of the 10th, to give her a full title, I think. Let's move on. Why don't we take a look at another card that forced this game 5, because it turned out that getting rid of that Archangel of Thune was a really big deal. So let's take a look at Banishing Light. Get rid of a non-land permanent until this leaves the battlefield. And it only left the battlefield in game 4 when they were shuffling for game 5.
Is fixing a loophole in Oblivion Ring, I don't find this to be a feature.
Yeah, I'm not going to say I wasn't responsible at all for that, considering I looped through Oblivion Rings on Magic Online until it crashed. But, I kind of missed that quote-unquote feature. I mean, Banishing Light is still a great card to have in the format. It's played in Blue-White Control, not the Planet Cleansing version, but the other versions. It's played in Black-White, the mid-range deck. It's played in, White-Green. It sees play in so many different decks because it's a good answer to anything, though it's not so efficient that you are priced into playing it, and you actually are paying for it. And it can be destroyed, which, makes it vulnerable to, removal spells. So overall, it's a very fair, powerful, and flexible card.
Yeah, I just miss being able to play my Oblivion Ring, put the come into play on the stack, and then bounce it with something. And, exile the permanent forever. But, we can't all have nice toys.
Yeah. I mean, this is why we cannot have nice things. And Oblivion Ring was a pretty sweet thing.
Yeah.
Was very, very lovely. The players off camera, I can just see them still chatting, still shuffling, but they're smiling and they're still very much getting on. I do wonder, I have a sneaking feeling that at the end of this game we're going to see something very emotional, because I know personally for even Floch, when he won Grand Prix Lisbon in 2012, there might have been a little bit of liquid around at that point. It was a very emotional moment for him. And this is an order of magnitude higher than that, of course, great though a European Grand Prix win is. On the other side, starting to feel that maybe Jackson Cunningham is just at that point where he's trying to hold himself together one more time, just a few more turns. Come on, brain, don't fail me now. And if he gets through 3 days of nerve-shredding action, I think we might see something a little more than just, oh, thanks very much, handshake, and on we go.
I think we may see actual rubber limbs. He may just fall over. He's been so tightly wound and coiled this whole weekend.
Well, Jackson has basically the perfect hand on the draw here, and Floch is mulliganing. So,
Yes.
you know, I would not want to be in Floch's seat right now. I think that Jackson has a pretty good advantage just based on seeing his 7 versus an unknown 6.
All right. So, if you're supporting Canada, and we know so many of you are, on day one, basically, there weren't a ton of players amongst the contenders, certainly for for the World Magic Cup captaincy. You looked at McLaren and Sam Tharmaratten and Jacob Wilson and John Stern, and it was just 4-3-1 was their best record. But who knew that there was a Canadian star coming in the making in the form of Jackson Cunningham?
How do you like a pair of Nyx Fleece Rams in your opening hand?
Nyx Fleece Ram is actually good, and with Archangel of Thune, this hand actually is perfectly poised to fight against what Jackson has.
All right, it's time for Game 5 of the final of Pro Tour Magic 2015. It begins with Ivan Floch of the Slovak Republic, as he would almost always want to do, with a Scryland with his blue-white control deck against the white-green aggro man that will not go away from Canada, Jackson Cunningham. Brian David Marshall, it's been an amazing season, an amazing Pro Tour, as we see Experiment 1 come down to get us going. Who wins?
Until I saw the double Nyx Fleece Ram, I really thought Jackson might have had it, but I'm gonna say that Ivan is gonna be able to buy the time he needs.
He's going to be saved by his Floch?
Yes,
his Ivan Floch. I think that given the new information that we have of Ivan's hand, I actually think Ivan's a favorite right now.
Yeah, me too.
We have Fleece
But
Main
that's
Lion.
still a sweet-looking hand there from Cunningham.
Yeah, but have you seen what Nyx Fleece Ram does with Archangel of Thune?
Maybe we're about to.
We are. Ivan Floch's going to play an Archangel, then on his upkeep, 2 life gain triggers are going to happen. He's going to get, and Cunningham's potentially going to be attacked by 2 Nyx Fleece Rams and Archangel of Thune that's a 5/6.
Here comes a Johnny.
Well,
Oh no, we don't have
a
a
Johnny
second
would
white.
be the perfect card. But
Yeah.
Mana Confluence is currently Jackson's only source of white mana.
Floch there, looking to see whether he can unleash a devastating Archangel of Thune.
A gang of Rams just double blocked the Fleece main line, but there was no trick, so nothing happened. Basically, Jackson is just on drawing Banishing Light. He probably doesn't have 3 in his deck. Otherwise, Archangel of Thune's going to run away with the game really quickly.
So back we go to Cunningham. Double Fleece main line. Experiment 1 already with 2 counters, which is about as much as we've seen today for that. Turn them all sideways. Block, block. And back to 20 goes Even Floch.
Virtually 22.
Yeah.
Boy.
Azorius Charm, another excellent draw. What I really want to see is he could potentially give lifelink to all 3 of his creatures. Angel already has it, but then now the Rams have it, and they have +2. gaining him multiple other Archangel triggers. He could actually just go off, like just
Right.
go infinite with Archangel, not actual infinite, just
Yeah.
Ben S infinite, which is like 3. For a 6-card hand, these are if you're going to play a hand with 3 spells and 6 land, this is the hand.
Okay.
Go.
That's right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Advent of the Worm.
17. Floch 22. 21, 17.
We're getting everything we could want from a final game of a final. There you see Archangel of Thune.
I don't know if it's going to matter, but that experiment
I
1
was just
could be
gonna
1
say.
bigger.
That he missed a trigger on the Advent of the Worm token. That isn't a Johnny's Presence.
Yeah, which we've hardly seen. It's just been missing in action throughout the day, really. But we're going to see 4 creatures turning sideways from Jackson Cunningham. He has hurled everything at even Floch.
And as long as Floch doesn't lose his Archangel to a combat trick, which I think he's not going to,
Right.
he's in pretty good shape. He's at 22 life going into the attack. Next turn he's going to go up to 24 minus the 8 he's about to take. And then Archangel's going to be a 5/6, getting him 5 more. At the end of the turn, the Nyx Fleece Rams are all going to be 3/8s.
Gosh.
Ivan Floch sided in a combo, and it's actually paying off perfectly.
17.
So in addition to the Banishing Lights, I assume at some point the Selesnya Charms become somewhat live for Jackson, but those Nyx Fleece Rams will still be huge.
Yeah, Jackson has to draw now Celestia Charm or Banishing Light on his next turn. And if he doesn't do that, then that Archangel is going to, if Archangel gets a second hit in, it's going to be very hard for him to win the game.
Floch 14.
Here we go again. More Advent of the Worm. That is a board state and a half on the right-hand side for Jackson Cunningham. Floch at 14. But trigger, look at all the counters go.
Just like they drew it up in testing. I mean, it's not that you put these 2 cards in because they're a combo, but you are aware that they are a combo. Azorius Charm gets to kill one of the worm tokens, too. So even though there's a giant force-headed Floch's way, he does get to threaten to deal lethal in just 2 turns with this Angel, if the sheeps actually get to deliver lethal next turn.
In comes Archangel of Thune. No blocks. Jackson Cunningham down to 11.
Floch 21.
This is not how I would have expected the Pro Tour to end.
Oh, it's extraordinary. Such drama deep on Sunday evening here in Portland. Fantastic venue for a great season ender.
Doesn't a Johnny?
The problem is that Johnny doesn't just gets Azorius Charmed if it
You're
does
right.
anything too fancy. And with Floch at 21, there's actually no way that Cunningham can actually kill him in 1 hit either. He can try to string it out over 2 turns, but between the 2 off the Rams and the now what's going to be 8 next attack on the Angel, because the Angel is a 6/7 right now. It's going to grow up to an 8/9 during Floch's upkeep and then attack for 8. So Jackson actually has to be aware that either sheep is going to be lethal if he attacks with too much. Again, not exactly how I expected the Pro Tour to end, but it's actually in danger of being very relevant that the sheep can attack, that they're not defenders, which you might have assumed if you just looked at the card without reading the whole thing.
You just looked at the 0/5.
Right. The fact that they can attack means an all-out attack here could actually be risky.
And is that what we're going to see? It is. Turn them all sideways. It's called white-green aggro for a reason. They turn them all sideways. And Floch now has to choose what to send in the way. And it's the 2 lines that are going to get blocked by the 2 sheep.
What happens if he gives his creatures lifelink here?
Well, that gives him 2 more triggers if he wants to, which would make the sheep both end up 4 power this turn and then go up to 6 on his upkeep. If Jackson's casting a Johnny's Presence with Strive, I think is just going to be dead on the attack back if Ivan just does okay and then attacks with everything.
Here
Saving
is
both his guys.
the Strive Ajani's Presence.
Sure.
Okay.
Sure, says Floch. He's looking. Here it comes. Oh,
Experiment 1 on top is enough. I mean, Ivan can just attack next turn with all 3 of his creatures. Jackson has no blockers.
Send it away.
I like going to attack in my turn, even with chips.
I'm going to attack.
I'll attack in my turn with chips too.
Oh, okay.
Floch's explaining what he thinks is going to happen. He's smiling because he thinks he's about to win the Pro Tour.
Oh,
I believe
dead.
he's correct.
11.
11?
Yes.
Okay. Go ahead.
Trigger.
And
Yeah.
go ahead. Jackson is going to let it happen. And you are going to see Ivan Floch of the Slovak Republic. You've never seen anyone play a turn so fast. In they come. It's the angels and the sheep for Ivan Floch, who wins the
Pro Tour. Holy sheep.
That was unreal. Ivan Floch takes the title over Jackson Cunningham in 5 pulsating games. And Ivan Floch, you can see starry-eyed there as he takes the title. Jackson Cunningham there already with older brother Jeff, and he hurled everything into that matchup. Just outstanding magic. And Ivan Floch at the end knew he was going to do it, and boy, what a feeling, gentlemen.
All he had to do was not accidentally flip over to Supreme Verdict and say he was casting it, and he was Pro Tour champion, and he knew this. So you could see how quickly he was moving. He knew what was happening.
Yeah, he saw the last few turns. He had scripted out perfectly. He was putting an experiment 1 on top of his opponent's deck that was going to be, just a null draw. Something happened, but there was nothing that could happen.
Yeah, it was 2 5/10 sheep, plus that Archangel that had grown to enormous proportions, which were just more than enough to deal lethal.
And it turns out that single sideboard card can be all the difference in the world. There's an Archangel of Thune. It hadn't been really on our radar through most of the day, but when it came down to it,
Right.
you go.
It's quite an encore for Archangel of Thune, actually. Right. This was an M14 card. That's.
Yeah, I mean, it's an awesome card. I played it a lot, but I have not yet attacked for 8 lifelink with 2 other 05s in play.
all right, a phenomenal end to a great season. We're going to send you back to the news desk. Thanks very much to Pro Tour historian Brian David Marshall, and of course our Hall of Famer, Louis Scott Vargas. Gentlemen, as always, an honour and pleasure. But for now, it's back to the news desk and Marshall Sutcliffe.
Thanks, Rich. Wow, welcome back to the news desk. Zach Hill's here, Marshall Sutcliffe's here. That is not how I expected the Pro Tour to end, Zach.
Yeah, I did not expect this tournament would be won by mono sheep aggro, but that's exactly what we saw. I mean,
Nick's Fleece Ram beat down.
That's exactly right. Just ramming it down. There's so many games that we saw from Floch that just lasted turn after turn after turn after turn.
Mm-hmm.
And to see the final game come down with a very decisive Archangel of Thune, incredible combo with Nick's Fleece Ram, allowing him not to have to cycle through his deck with Elixir of Immortality at all, but really able to turn the tide. I mean, a truly impressive victory from Floch.
Yeah, Ivan Floch, of course, is our champion here. Jackson Cunningham is going to have to settle for a second place finish. Not the worst result for your first Pro Tour.
No,
though.
absolutely not. I mean, he really put himself on the map. His deck was extremely powerful. He had an incredibly competitive match. And, I mean, it's actually a really hard place to be in, I think, because at your second Pro Tour, you're like, I just made the finals of my first one.
Yeah.
And what do you do then? I mean, you're like, oh, well, I've got to win or bust.
Right, you got to get a new personal record, right? I mean, that's the whole point. So that's pretty brutal. Now, that was interesting, though, in that last game. Ivan Floch's deck, generally speaking, is a deck all about inevitability, right? It has the ability to take the game to the infinite depths of length where it can just sit there and cycle through cards over and over and over again. But he found himself in a position where he didn't need to do that at all thanks to that particular board state.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, and really, half of it is you look at the card Nick's Fleece Ram, you don't even remember that it can attack.
Right.
It's like 05 just looks like a defender.
It looks like a defender.
Right, exactly. But the fact that it triggered twice, he was really able to pile on the damage. I mean, and we saw from one of the earlier games when Cunningham was just sitting there on 2 mana confluence forever. The deck actually does deal itself quite a bit of damage, or at least is capable of doing so. So our Archangel, just doesn't need to attack that many times to put the game away.
Yeah, and of course, we saw the script get flipped there as Cunningham doesn't have that many ways to deal with perms. So Banishing Light would be obviously a critical card in this match, but he doesn't have that many ways to kill creatures. He's all about doing it himself. So an Archangel of Thune, even on its own, is really nasty for Cunningham.
Yeah, that's exactly right. I mean, we talked about how good the Fleecemane Lion can be. Not really a lot of answers from Floch's side of the board. The thing is, he doesn't have to answer it. Even if it's monstrous, Nyxvius for him can block, and that 5 toughness is kind of the magic number.
Yeah.
And we saw him hold off the Lions very successfully in that match.
Yeah, so let's talk about Yvonne Floch for a minute here. He's been playing Magic for 12 years. This is his first Pro Tour top 8. It's got to feel like justice to Yvonne, right, to sit here and finally make that top 8, and then on top of it, might as well win it while you're here, right?
Well, I mean, we heard from Mate Zadelkai, his teammate, Floch's been around a long time. He's got a lot of good finishes, a lot of pro points, but that top 8 was kind of an albatross hung around his neck. It was something that not only had he not had, but the pressure of it, according to Mate, had really sort of affected his results. So, to me, it's like, unscrewing the cap of a bottle or something. It's like, now that this has happened, now that he's got, a top 8, he's crossed that off his list, I might expect him to rattle like a few more of these off. It's not looming over him, kind of casting its shadow on Floch's finishes.
Yeah, that is the vibe I got when Mate told us about that as well, is that, Floch had multiple top 50 finishes.
Right.
I mean, he was like consistently finishing at that level, but just couldn't quite punch through all the way to the top 8 level.
Well, I mean, I was so surprised when we sat down here at the table hearing that he didn't have a top 8. I mean, we've been saying even Floch in the feature match area.
All the time.
All the time, for as long as I've been doing coverage. So I think, when we were realizing, wait, has he really never been here on Sunday?
Yeah, it did feel kind of weird, and I'm kind of happy that he's there now. I think he's ready to go. Okay, guys, so we've got Richard Hagan over in the feature match area, and it is time for the award ceremony here from Portland. Let's hand it over to Rich.
Hello everyone, and welcome to the award ceremony for Pro Tour Magic 2015 here from Portland, Oregon. It's a great pleasure to welcome so many of you from around the world who followed this amazing Pro Tour season, and we close out our season with the end of year awards. So we begin with the award for Rookie of the Year, and that goes to a man from the United States, Mr. Jared Betcher. Jared, many, many congratulations. So many of the great players in the game have held that award over the years. What is the season highlight for you in an incredible run that's taken you to platinum status?
Probably the finals of DC when I finally got queued for the Pro Tour.
It's been an incredible run. What can we expect from you next year?
Just to play my best and hopefully a repeat performance or better.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, the Rookie of the Year, Jared Betcher. And now to one of the highest accolades anyone can ever aspire to in the game of Magic. It's the Player of the Year. And it goes to a man from France who has set the season alight, Mr. Jeremy Desani. Jeremy, a lot of applause in the building and a lot of applause from your many fans around the world. In Europe, we've known about you for a while, but what does it mean to put yourself in such a prominent global position in a game you know I care so much about?
It's just crazy. When you saw the name before me, Player of the Year, you say, wow, Kai Bud, Gabriel Nassif, all those big names. So yeah, it's a great achievement. I'm really happy with that.
What was your highlight of the season? Pro Tour Theros?
Yeah, for sure. It's 30 points in one time and Platinum. So yeah, this was the big moment in the season for me.
And I know you're part of a big team of support players who really care about your success almost as much as you do.
I don't know. Yes, my team is really good. I'm really happy to be with Raph and Pierre, Timothy, all the big group, and other guys from other country. Samuel Estrati, Joel Larson, yeah, Melissa. So yeah, I have a good team. I like this team, and for sure I stay with these guys.
All right, ladies and gentlemen, your player of the year for 2013 to 2014 is Jeremy Desani. And now we turn our attention to today, the final day of the season. We've had a fantastic top 8, and no one has contributed more to that than our second place finisher, making it all the way to the final on his first ever Pro Tour appearance. From Canada, Jackson Cunningham. Jackson Cunningham, an incredible performance, but of course there can be only one winner. And the champion here of our final Pro Tour of the season, winning $40,000 from the Slovak Republic, Floch. Ivan, I know you've been playing a long time. How long have you been dreaming of holding a Pro Tour title trophy like this?
Well, since I was playing. Since I've been playing for 20 years, 12 years, so since back then.
12 years of playing. So what was the moment like when you looked at the board and you knew that you were about to claim the title?
Incredible. Well,
he is lost for words, but he is certainly not lost in the woods. He has done a fantastic job here. Your champion of Pro Tour Magic 2015, Floch. We'd like to thank all the players, the staff, the judges, and most of all, you at home for helping to make this such a great event. That's the end of the awards ceremony, the end of the season, and we're going to hand you back to the news desk and Marshall Sutcliffe.
And welcome back to the news desk. High emotion over there in the feature match area, Zach Hill. We're going to have Floch up here on the desk with us momentarily to have a quick chat with him, maybe check out that trophy a little bit before we let him go celebrate. But any closing thoughts for you on this Pro Tour Magic 2015?
I mean, it's exactly what we saw up there on stage. You know, I mean, one person gets the trophy, but a team gets them there. We saw in the background, I mean, Robin Delar, we saw Martin Yuza, we saw Frank Carson, we saw everybody that helped Floch get to this point. You know, the smiles on their faces were almost as powerful as the emotion that Floch himself was experiencing. But, you know, I mean, a truly huge moment for that team in general, producing a Pro Tour champion, not from either of the CFB squads, not from Revolution, not necessarily representing a turning of the tide. Obviously, we saw Huey, we saw Owen in the feature match area. But just a reminder that there are a lot of teams at this event with a lot of ridiculously good players. And as I mentioned, I think we're going to see a lot more from Floch in the years ahead.
I think so too. I think that we can certainly look forward to seeing a lot more from Floch. That mental barrier thing is a real deal. Yeah. And when you get that out of the way and you start crushing it, it's pretty common to see people go on a tear and start ripping it up after that. And I'm certainly going to be looking for Floch for that.
Yeah, I think so. I think also a shout out goes to, I believe, whenever I ask anybody on the team about the deck, over and over again, the name Stanislav Sivka kept getting mentioned as the person who was saying, really championed the deck. Not everybody played it. It wasn't one of those situations, but basically the person who basically said, like, here's exactly how you play this really, really complicated, really, really grueling deck.
Yes.
Showing the play patterns
very
to
demanding.
get through this. Incredibly demanding. I mean, the mental fortitude you have to play a deck like that for 10 rounds of constructed, and then of course the quarterfinals, semifinals, finals over 3 days. I mean, just truly a very impressive feat.
Ivan, hello. A man with a very large check has appeared. Yeah. Go ahead and sit down. That looks great with your name on it.
It's not going to see me in here.
You can set it down if you want.
We know it's there.
Yeah, first, congratulations. You're the champion here in Portland.
Awesome job. Congratulations.
Fantastic
Thank you very
work.
much.
First question, is that how you thought the Pro Tour would end, with you attacking with Nyx Fleece Rams for lethal?
Yeah, I was hoping for, but yeah, actually, I didn't think it's very likely, but
sure.
Happens. things happen.
So what made you choose to play this deck? I know it seemed like your team wasn't really unified. Why did it speak to you?
It was Stanislav Sivka, who made me play this deck. At first, he was like, I'm going to play this deck, and I wanted to prove him wrong, that it's not a good choice, but I didn't manage to do that, and I joined him.
Now, what about, so you get $40,000, you're automatically platinum, and you get a seat in the World Championship.
Yeah,
what does that mean to you?
Well, a lot, obviously a lot. It's incredible.
So this is your first top 8, and it's a long time coming. When you found out that you were going to top 8, was the predominating thing for you relief, excitement? What were the emotions you went through?
Excitement.
Oh, yeah.
For sure. I wasn't relieved. I was waiting and trying for this for a long time, so I was really excited. My friends can say to that I was really exciting, jumping around and doing crazy things.
Now, you talked about Sivka, who really sort of championed the deck. Is there anybody else on your team that sort of you really want to give a special shout out to as contributing to your success?
To everyone, to Frank Karsten, to Martin Juza, to Matej Zatlka, to Robert Jurkovic, to Robin Dolar, to Nikola Vavra, to Petr Sochurek, and to Adam Koska. Hopefully I didn't forget anyone. We all tested together and it was great.
Oh yeah, an incredible set of names.
Yeah, so it took you a little while to get to the top 8. You going to be back soon?
I hope so.
You can say yes.
I hope so. Okay, I will be.
Oh,
I like that confidence.
Yeah, I like it. You know, when they were announcing the top 8 and they were bringing everybody up on stage, you know, a couple of the guys kind of moused up there and like, okay, here, I'm here. But when they called your name, you walked up there very proud, a big smile on your face, and you seemed to enjoy it as much as anybody I've ever seen.
Well, yes. Yes, that's true.
And so going forward, is this the type of deck? I wanted to ask you about the deck. Are you going to be sticking with this until rotation for as long as you can? Like, is this the deck for you, or are you pretty versatile still?
I don't know. It's quite possible that I'll be playing next week in Utrecht, and it's probable that I will play this deck, yes.
Okay.
But I'm not sure yet.
For the people watching at home who are going to take this to their Friday Night Magics, is there anything that you'd change? Or, I mean, given that you want a Pro Tour, you're like, no, the 75 are perfect.
No, I don't think I will change a thing, except maybe I would play more Square Islands, maybe one more, because those are awesome. And even in aggressive matchup, when you need your colored mana, so that's where Azur's Gilgate helps. Even there, sometimes it's better the off-color Gilgate because it helps you search for Supreme Verdict. So, and in matchups where I'm in top deck mode, those Square Islands are just better.
Okay, Ivan, you are our champion. Once again, congratulations. What a great day for you. I'm sure that everybody at home is watching and they're all proud of you. You did a great job.
Thank you very much.
Yep.
Excellent
Zach,
job.
it's time to go, buddy. We need to, we got some drafts to do. Let's just be honest about it here. Make sure that you join us next week. Before we take off here, we do have the stream next week. It is going to be Grand Prix Portland. It is a team Grand Prix. You're not going to want to miss it. It is going to be a fantastic event for viewers. I have gotten a chance to take a look at some of the teams, and they are going to be absolutely incredible. But until then, we want to thank the judges, the tournament staff. We want to thank Steve Port, the crew who set everything up here, and most of all, you, the viewer, for joining us for this whole weekend. We love spending the weekend with you, watching Magic. For Zach Hill and the rest of the coverage team, I'm Marshall Sutcliffe, signing off from Portland. We'll see you guys next time.